Welcome to the Real Talk Weekly podcast, where we discuss news, culture, life, and dive into deep conversations about our faith. Here's your host, Alan Reed.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Real Talk podcast.
Sans David.
Yeah, David's sick. David's sick today. We got a great lineup for you. We're going to be talking about Elf on the Shelf. And we have a secret dish from Allie. I think she's going to
That's what all my dishes
test
are.
our knowledge.
Secret
my
dishes.
husband would say.
All I have to say is I'm going to win whatever it is. It's going to be James against myself. David won't be here, so
Otherwise, David would
after
win.
50, yeah, otherwise he would win. So
50-50.
true. And for the deep dish, we got a fun controversy. You know, we as pastors
It is
like
not
to talk
fun.
about stuff. It'll be interesting. I know you two are, you guys are a little nervous about this, but
I'm
we're going to talk about
risk-averse.
Matt Chandler and Johnny Hunt and pastor restoration and what that looks like and what does a healthy restoration look like. So everyone's going to have an opinion, and you guys are going to have an opinion. We want to hear
Yes.
that as well. But anyways, we haven't really sat down and talked since Thanksgiving, and now
Yeah.
we're like headed right into Christmas.
Yeah.
So how about this? Let's talk about what do you have on your Christmas list, your wish list, that is either interesting or weird? What's something that you have on there that you can share with us?
Allie's got a grin, so I want her to go ahead and go.
Yours is a bigger grin. You can go first.
So,
No, after you.
after you, age before beauty.
That's you.
That would
wait.
be you.
Dang it.
That would
you
still
and
be
that's
you.
Oh, man, that bit me. So it's actually funny because my sister-in-law messaged my wife and said, why are these things on James's Amazon list? And my wife had to ask me, she's like, why are these on your Amazon list? I'm like, for fun. I mean,
Yeah.
like, why does everything on your Christmas list have to be like socks and T-shirts? I mean, like, you know,
doesn't have
like
to
we
be.
can have fun. We can still have fun as adults. So I have two things on my Christmas list on Amazon that I actually really do want.
They're for pranking, aren't they?
One of them is, and one
Yeah,
of them's
I
not.
knew it.
So
Whoopee cushion.
because see, somebody got me one of these because I always put things on my Amazon wish list that are things for me that are fun to do to other people. And a few years ago, I flamingoed people's yards,
Right.
Because somebody actually bought me the thing from my wish list, and it was the yard flamingos that had the little arms that flap. And so I took, and it's like a package of a bunch of them. So I took them out and just randomly flamingoed my friends' yards here at church, and most of them still to this day don't know it was me that did it unless they listen to this
Nice.
podcast. So one of those things is little rubber duckies.
Yes,
And-
this is for this prank. You've talked about it before.
And and they're like these tiny little rubber duckies because I just think it'd be hilarious. I mean, they're like little 1-inch duckies, and it's a box of 150 of them, and it's only like $20.
Now we know.
And so I desperately want someone to get those for me because if they don't, I'll do it anyway. But because I just want to start rubber ducking people, and I just think it'd be fun to go someplace and put a rubber ducky somewhere.
All right, I'll know.
And then the other
We all
thing
know
is
it's you now.
kangaroo shoes.
What?
I want kangaroo shoes.
What are those?
So they're basically like these little oval-looking solid spring things on the bottom of what look like rollerblade boots, but they allow you to like bounce when you walk, and you can like jump really high
I've
with
seen
them.
those. Those look cool.
Yeah, I'm actually afraid of those because I think I might hurt myself, but I still
So
I
like
still
moon
want them.
shoes.
Moon shoes?
Yeah, kind of. They were like, I don't know, intergalactic boots in the 90s.
Yeah. Similar. Kind of
Yeah.
springs.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
springs.
essentially, yeah.
Similar.
But kangaroo shoes, I just think they'd be fun.
They would be fun. That actually sounds cool.
Yeah. All right,
Well,
Allie.
I don't have anything as strange as that, but I think I ask for normal things, mostly things I can't afford or things I just won't buy myself throughout the year. However, I did find a snack that I want to try, but it's from Trader Joe's. We don't have one here.
I know. That's a whole other topic.
Alan, it makes me so sad. We can talk about that later.
we have Aldi.
Ashley's contacted Trader Joe's and requested one here.
Okay, I need to do the same because they told me if enough people do it, then they'll bring it here.
Yes, she has done it.
There's going to be a fight with Walmart. I
right.
just
Trader
see
Joe's
it.
has really good okra.
Well, that's not on my list. But what is on my list
Yeah.
is dark chocolate drizzled plantain chips.
Interesting.
Plantain?
Yeah, I like their regular ones.
It's a
but
banana, essentially.
It's a tiny banana.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm curious. I don't know.
That sounds good.
It's like the only weird thing on my Christmas list. The rest of
But
it
you're a
is
dark chocolate.
Let's
person.
ask
Yeah, I love
ask for
dark
Trader
chocolate.
Joe's for Christmas.
okay. Yeah, that's gonna be the
You know
top.
what? And I don't get that excited. Every time we go to a city with Trader Joe's, Ashley wants to stop by there.
Yeah.
And they're all the same, but they do have interesting food.
They do.
have interesting stuff.
And they have so many seasonal items.
Yeah.
So that's what's really fun. And it's more affordable, I feel like. Yeah. I love a grocery store, though. If I'm on vacation, I like to visit other people's grocery stores. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a weird one, but that's okay. I don't have a Christmas list this year because I've already spent a lot of money going back to what I always talk about, but I have a new mountain bike sitting in my garage that I have yet to ride. So the strange thing about my wish list is I don't have one this year.
Yes.
But I am so happy. So one of these days I'll be riding again.
So what is on Ashley's Christmas list is that you would ride the mountain bike you spent money on. Good.
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely. So I thought you were about to ask me what's on Ashley's wish list.
Yikes.
What is on Ashley's wish list?
Wish list.
She already got hers too. We've already got ours early. So
you both already know what you got?
Yeah, we've already bought them. So, and she requested this, but she has a treadmill. It would be weird if I just said, I'm getting her a treadmill. You know, that wouldn't sound
that's
too
good. I'm glad you said that.
I got her a vacuum.
right. But she wanted a treadmill. And there's a whole story behind that. The thing said that when I ordered it weighed like 225 pounds. And I'm like, all right, Carson and I can get that up the stairs. No problem. The thing weighed 320 pounds. And we almost died. We almost died. It would have made a great,
but you didn't.
Great video of me like pushing it up with my shoulder, sliding it up the stairs.
Maybe you need to use the treadmill, but walk on your hands so that you build those arm muscles.
Yeah,
interesting.
It was awful, but
it's time for the dish.
Anyways, let's get into our dishes here. I'm excited about them. Why don't we start with? Let's go with something with a Christmas theme. Tell us a little bit about the Elf on the Shelf article you got there.
Mum, because this is a story from the motherland of the British Isles. Mum created an elaborate Elf on the Shelf cover story after her toy mysteriously loses a limb. So this, Elf on the Shelf is a big deal. A lot of families use it. And as I understand it, because we don't do it because we don't have any kids. The idea is that the elf is always watching to keep you good. And if you're not good, it's going to tell Santa.
Yes. And it moves.
So it moves and changes every day so that it looks like it's alive. So really it's kind of a creepy thing that parents do to make them think that this little doll is alive and that, Santa
I love it.
is going to take away their toys if they're bad. But and I know a lot of people do it and it's really funny. But this one, apparently the mom got an Elf on a Shelf and she'd only had it for a day. Is basically the way the story reads, and it lost a leg, and she couldn't find the leg. Like she could not find the leg.
I don't
of this
think that
elf on
elf
the
is
shelf.
going to think those kids.
They must make them different in England because it's all one piece.
Well, this thing is not. So this the picture of.
We need to post the picture.
Poor guy. Like the Elf on the Shelf that we've seen from our friends posting it here in the States is very different because it's all fabric and it's kind of cute. This Elf on the Shelf has a plastic head.
Yeah.
And it's kind of creepy looking.
Yeah.
And so, but basically this woman's son was like, he's only had it for 12 hours and he's already in love with it. And now it's missing a leg. What am I going to do? So she created this elaborate story of how the elf lost its leg, which included like a dinosaur tag.
Oh my gosh.
And there's pictures of her like with a toy dinosaur that she got from her kid's room with the elf's like mangled leg. I'm like, this is a terrifying story because now the kid's going to be afraid that his dinosaur toy is going to come and eat his leg off in the middle of the night.
Right.
But she said that she went to the friend's house because she swore that's where they probably lost his leg and they can't find it. And then what she's terrified about is that the leg will just randomly turn up one day.
But now you've got a leg watching you and
it's like, so then she's going to say, well, the dinosaur must have, emptied it out of its bowels.
Disgusting.
But I'm like, she went to this
little
whole
Hershey's Kisses
like,
there with it.
Why not just go to the store and buy another elf?
Buy another elf.
Just buy another elf.
The child won't know.
That is hilarious.
But I mean, there's like a video that she's posted that shows like the elf, the stitching came undone, the leg just fell out. But she has no idea where the leg is. What would be super funny is if the kid has the leg.
Yeah. The kid ripped it off.
The kid has the leg, and then she's telling him this elaborate story. Oh, a dinosaur ate the leg, and the kids are like, no, it didn't. I ripped it
Little
off.
punk child. He doesn't even believe that the elf is
still
watching.
Get gifts. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the kid going to learn by getting gifts this year?
So she made a whole backstory, and like there's like, it's so funny. Allie, I wish you could see this. There's like these dinosaur toys, and the elf is like being ripped apart between them. I'm like, okay. That's really terrifying as a small child, but it's also really funny. It's like a real live Jurassic Park with an elf on a shelf.
People are very invested in this elf.
And
on the
then
shelf.
she took
This must have been
Legos.
before, when my kids weren't young. I don't know how
No.
old this is. Like,
Oh, this
They
is
were
that older
here.
thing.
They were here when your kids were little.
Yes,
I
really?
had one.
Really?
I was too old to have one, but we thought it was cute.
Yeah.
And I have nieces and nephews. So.
Yeah. But she then went and got her son's Legos and built a wheelchair for the elf.
Oh, that is
So the elf on the shelf has a
sweet.
wheelchair.
That is sweet.
But the whole thing was just really funny to me. I'm like, she made this backstory to cover the fact that her kid's elf on a shelf lost a leg.
That's a product I
Hilarious.
wish I made. Elf on the shelf.
No kidding.
Yeah. Could be retired now.
Yeah. You could get everything on your wish list.
Yes.
Without having to depend on someone else to do it.
All right. Well, Allie's got, I guess this is a
You don't
dish.
even know.
It's a dish.
You don't even know.
I don't even know.
I'll introduce it.
Okay.
What I have here is a quiz for you two about the words, movies, and people Americans search for on Google in 2022. As we're getting ready to wrap up the year, I'm like, what did everybody search for? You know, it was a very controversial year. Lots of things going on in celebrity news, in the world. You've got lots of different things going on in politics. And I feel like we were worked up about so many things. So these answers could be very
It's like we were
skewed.
trying to find things to be worked up
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Alan, I feel like this is a trick.
You
a
will
little bit.
forget what happened this year.
It's going to
based
all
off
be
of
about
these.
like K-pop, which
No.
you know about,
Yeah.
and mountain biking,
I'm gonna
which
rule
you know
K-pop
about.
now.
We'll do, okay, so categories, we'll just do the top three.
Okay.
Our most popular searches overall,
Okay.
most searched people, most searched current events, most searched movies, and most searched definitions.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
here we
feeling
go.
good. Not really.
You want me to start with the easy one? Or do you want me to go?
Yes.
All right. Most popular searches overall. Take your stab at what you think would be in the top three. And you just get a point if you get it right. It doesn't matter if you get 1, 2, or 3 right. I'm just saying they don't have to be in order. You just have to get at least one of them.
So most popular searches in general. Gosh, the top
Should I give you top 5 or should I
Well,
give you top 10?
Give us the top 10 and we have to choose the top 3. Can we do that?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because I mean, there's such a broad topic range that you can Google search for.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what makes this quiz really fun.
Well, do you really want us to try to guess?
Yeah, I really want you to just throw some out
Okay,
there.
so-
Look, I'll give you points if they're in the top 5. However many you get in the top 5, you get
Don't
points
Google.
for. You can't search. All right.
When you were making a list, I was going to write down what you're saying.
Okay,
All
so,
right,
I want to say,
and these are overall. All
like,
right.
so if I said like Lizzo,
Wrong.
oh, okay,
Hunter Biden.
Also wrong.
COVID.
Wrong.
COVID. It's so.
I know, but people
That's
are
so
2020.
2020, James.
Yeah. It's an election year.
Ukraine.
Yes.
Wrong.
What?
Guys, I'm telling you, it is mind-boggling. The things we got so worked up and invested over, they're not even in the
Not
top
even
5.
on there. Or just people are just Googling stupid stuff.
Stock market.
No, you're out of guesses. Alan, you have one more.
Something. Okay, let me think of something that's not important. Something not important.
Something
that
not
people are gonna-
important.
yeah, that I would never Google.
People are going to be
K-pop.
offended. No. Okay. In order, top 5. You both played this game.
Wordle.
Yes. Alan, you were so close. You just didn't say it. Election results. Betty White. James,
Oh,
I am
yeah.
sad for you. Queen Elizabeth and Bob Saget. Top 5 most popular searches overall.
Wow,
Right?
that's crazy.
You forget what happened this year.
I did forget about
Yeah.
Betty White and Bob
Okay,
Saget. And
here
the
we go.
Queen.
Top 5 most searched people.
Hunter Biden.
No.
Bob Saget.
No.
Betty White.
No.
Lizzo.
No. One more guess for you, 2 more for you.
I'm awful at this because I don't care about
You guys know, listen,
about
2 of
people.
these people, oh my gosh.
people.
Oh,
what did
Markle. Meghan Markle and what's her husband's name?
No.
No. And also Prince Harry.
And we already said Joe Biden.
2 of these people were in a massive court case this year.
Oh, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Yes, but you already missed
I was
all
out
your
of
guesses.
guesses.
See?
Okay,
I
here's
would never
another
have thought of
one.
that.
A celebrity at an awards show. Alan.
Celebrity on award show. Oh,
Yes.
Will Smith.
yeah, Will Smith. Sweet. Give me that one.
Okay, fine.
You
Have
got it
one,
because you got the
We're
slap.
tied.
I can have one.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have any.
Yeah, I don't think James got any
I
points.
don't have
I'm
any.
winning.
I told you you're going to win.
right.
Actually, you told me you were going to win.
Most searched current events. You guys can do this.
Election.
Yes.
Ukraine.
Yes.
Hunter Biden.
No.
Really?
Border crisis.
No.
Well, inflation.
No. I feel like maybe these were my most searched.
This is political.
Harry Styles.
Current events,
I'm just kidding.
No. One more guess for each of you.
Let's see. Current events, right?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
things that actually happened.
What happened in 2022?
See, you forget most of the stuff.
But I got 1 point, so now at least we're tied. But we still have one guess
You're
each.
missing one thing that's sad, one thing that is positive, depending on how you look at it, and another thing that is catastrophic. And I guess for the listeners, you can just decide which is which.
Catastrophic. Why did my mind immediately go to that one? Because I think that's the easiest thing to try to remember. But what catastrophically happened in 2022?
5 seconds. 5, 4,
Betty White.
3. No.
Was there a flood?
2. No.
Hurricane.
Kind of. Yeah.
See?
He only had
Ian.
one guess, and it was 2 guesses.
If there was a flood because of the hurricane.
Queen Elizabeth's passing.
Oh, yeah. she did
Ukraine
die.
Powerball numbers. And Hurricane Ian. There was a big Powerball.
Yeah.
Pay off a lot of debt with that. Okay.
But did you say Ukraine Powerball numbers?
No. They were.
I thought she said Ukraine
No,
Powerball
sorry,
numbers.
comma. They weren't having Powerball
Ukraine,
numbers
comma,
this year.
Powerball. Okay.
Sorry.
We're horrible at this game.
Okay.
We're tied.
Last one.
Let's go to
1-1.
most search definitions. I can almost guarantee you will only get one of these, if that, correct.
Most search definitions for this year.
Yep. I'll give you 2 guesses each.
2 guesses.
That's how much I believe in you.
She doesn't believe in us.
That's exactly
What was the thing we searched for like a million times during one of our podcasts? It was like the ambrosia salad or Waldorf salad or whatever it was.
Frog eye salad.
Frog eye salad, because everybody wanted to know what it was. We probably contributed to that one.
Whoever's editing this is going to have to edit out a
lot of dead space
lot
and
of dead
silence
space.
because we're like, duh, I don't know. All right, search definitions.
something to do with some medical something like
Crickets.
Okay, one guess. Go. 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh my gosh, any word will do here.
Bob.
Panda bear. I don't know.
Yikes. Okay,
We're horrible at this.
rupee.
Oh, okay.
Rupee?
Yeah, as in like,
Like
the
the
money.
money. The money.
Yeah.
It's a
Oligarch,
ripple.
which I guess is
Russian
like,
oligarchs.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Cacao, which is like the cocoa, or like the
Can you just please say that again?
Homer in recession. Recession was the only one I
recession.
thought you potentially.
Homer?
Yeah.
Homer.
Can you just
don't
say
be a
cacao?
homer.
Cacao.
No, the way you said it. Cacao. That's how you
What is
said
a
it.
cacao? What is that?
I think it's a bean.
I think it's a cow, but someone with a stutter said it.
No,
A cacao.
it's a bean, I believe, or like a plant, and it's used in a lot of like body lotions and stuff.
Boy, we failed.
We
That was
tied.
not. That was not entertaining.
Neither of us
That
won.
was not entertaining.
It was
It was
entertaining for
entertaining
Allie.
for me. Yeah, you guys are the
and probably for
worst.
our listeners who are like,
You need to
guys are
Google
so
more this
stupid.
year.
I think David would have done well on this.
But isn't it fascinating how much you forget?
Yeah.
Like we
It
got
is.
so worked up about so many things.
And they weren't even searching.
They're not
Google.
even, nobody else is
That
looking
means
for
that they're
them.
not important.
That's right. That's exactly what that means.
All right.
It's the deep dish.
Now we're on to something more serious.
Yeah, something important.
Okay.
And
so
not searched for.
Recently.
Oh, I bet there's people that search for
Yeah,
this
that's
stuff.
right.
Yeah. So this isn't going to matter to a lot of people. Well, actually, I think it will. If you have not grown up in church, you probably heard stories. You know, it's in the news all the time of a fallen pastor. We've had sex abuse cases and issues within our own denomination. I know that happened, what was it, maybe 5-7 years ago with the Catholic Church. So here we have two predominant pastors within our circle of whether it's Southern Baptist or close to it. Matt Chandler, is he He's Southern Baptist, right?
I think
Kind of.
technically they are.
Non-denominational. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
technically.
they're SBC.
Yeah.
Anyways, where both of them had to step away from their position for a period of time, and they've both been restored. So let me give you a quick overview. Johnny Hunt, credible pastor, been in leadership for a long time, definitely a leader within the Southern Baptist Convention. And, we'll let you guys go and research the details on it, but in simple terms, a sexual interaction between he and someone that wasn't his spouse, okay? And it was concealed for a period of time, and the woman came out later about it. And anyways, he thinks it was consensual. She doesn't think it was consensual. And they had a third party come in and determine that it was not consensual. So he was restored after 6 months within that. And so just from outside looking in, you're just thinking, wow, here's another pastor who had sexual relations, did something inappropriate. We were held to a high standard. He fell short. And within a 6-month period, he's being restored. So no matter how you look at it, whichever side you're on with that one, if you know the details of it, it doesn't look good at all. And there's some concern there. The other one's Matt Chandler. And with his situation, he had a friendship with a woman, and that's to our knowledge. He had a friendship with a woman. It wasn't sexual in any way. Neither one of them claimed that it was, but very, very frequent and very familiar, comfortable conversations between them on, I think it was on Facebook, like direct messaging one another.
Instagram.
Some joke, okay,
Yeah, it was on
Instagram,
Instagram.
joking around, stuff like that. And evidently maybe a friend of the woman confronted Matt one Sunday. He went directly to his elders, which I commend him for. And from what I understand, there was nothing beyond that, which it is concerning if a pastor has a close relationship with someone of the opposite sex and it appears to be way too familiar, crosses some boundaries there. And so he went with that situation to the elders, and later they all decided that it would be good for him to step away because of stress and everything going on, he was not showing wisdom, and he recognized that. His wife knew about the friendship and everything. Anyways, it doesn't seem like it has the same boundaries weren't crossed. It seems to be a little bit more nuanced in that way. But he came back after 3 months, and the article that we'll post that goes along with this is Matt Chandler receives standing ovation upon return to the pulpit. And some people just think, really? Standing ovation for maybe an inappropriate friendship with somebody? And so anyways, I wanted to talk about this probably more than you guys did because I think it's really important in an age. You just look at what we've gone through over the last several years where accusations, whether it's politically, whether it's just, what would you call it, politically correct, everyone's kind of very concerned with how do we speak and what do we say, when do we cross the line, when do we not cross the line. And I just think we're living in a season where there is a lack of forgiveness. We're not trying to understand someone on the other side of the aisle, whether it's politically, religious, whatever it is. And I just think we have an opportunity as a church to show healthy examples of forgiveness and restoration in a day and age where that is not being shown. And sometimes it's Christians not being very, charitable to people on the opposite side. And then we see that in political realm as well. And so my first question to you guys, as familiar as you are with these two situations, and it may not be that familiar, but just upon reading the articles, how do you feel about these two examples of restoration? What are you comfortable with? What's unsettling? Do you think there are good examples or bad examples of restoration?
This one's hard for me. And I have the personality where I want to see every message sent, I want to see everything so I can really decide for myself. I know there's even been a lot of, I'm going to say false information in the way that media has shared both of these stories. Just like different headlines that are kind of bait click headlines, but that's not accurate information. And, and so even the journalism hasn't been thorough, I would say, for either of these
I think
stories.
that there's a lot of people who would love to see, conservative evangelical Christianity have a black eye.
Oh, for
Yes.
sure. For sure.
And in some way, this is a black eye, and so,
It's hard because there's a consequence for every action, right? And we know the consequence for sin is a big deal. And especially like you are called to a higher standard as a pastor. I have some trouble with the way that probably the congregation dealt with Matt Chandler returning. The standing ovation seemed a little much for me, but I'm also thinking, if that happened to a pastor that I loved and just really, really cared for and trusted their leadership, I would be over the top thrilled that I felt like they had been restored.
Yeah.
And I have to put it into my own perspective of like, do I feel the same way about somebody who doesn't work in the church? So if there's a politician who has kind of a messed up, is paying the consequences of their actions, do I feel the same excitement for them being restored as I do for a pastor? And that's probably a gut check for me because I don't know that I can say that. So I probably put a little more emphasis on a pastor being restored as well. And so I don't know. It's just, this
hard.
is one I feel like I just go around in circles and
Yeah,
I have,
for sure.
I don't end on anything.
For sure.
Yep.
You said, Allie, the media not covering it well. Like we get those of us that are in Southern Baptist churches, especially, or maybe those of you that are out to get Southern Baptist churches. Earlier this year, I think this was 2022, right? We were talking about what we forgot. The report came out about all the allegations that had happened and the third party investigation that the SBC launched into things. And, there's all these things that popped up in a report and the news media covered it because it was such a big deal. And a couple of things about that, like, the SBC voluntarily had the investigation conducted by a third party, and because they wanted to know, powers that be wanted to know what was going on. But the thing that got reported was all this stuff that happened, and a lot of it was either inaccurate and out of date. It was merely a potential accusation, but the media was reporting it as, oh, there were this many things that happened, and it's like, well, that's not true,
Right. Not exactly.
And there were a lot of things that were included in those numbers to inflate the numbers. And I say inflate, maybe it sounds like a accusatory word, but there were a lot of things which inflated those numbers that didn't even have to do with SBC churches or organizations that got lumped into it. And so, but looking at these two stories, and I'll admit I was apprehensive to talk about this just because of the reality, and my boss is currently going through a book with someone, and we were just talking about this about, there's not an option for candor when it comes to staff members, pastors in a church, because you can't. There's this culture that's built, whether we like it or not, the reality is it's true. There's this culture that's built that we can't have a forum where we can discuss the things that we're struggling with, where we can be honest about the temptations that we face and all those things. And we as church workers, as pastors, have a target painted on our back because the enemy desperately wants to take us out. It's not just the people in the world that want to see the church get a black eye. There is a legitimate spiritual war going on where the enemy wants to take us out. And so we have a target painted on our backs, and the reality is anybody that is a believer that is out there trying to share the gospel, that is out there, you don't have to work for a church. You can be an incredibly solid believer that goes and works at Walmart. And if you are trying to do what the Lord wants, you have a target painted on your back. And it's we're so quick in church to dismiss, to disparage, to, say, oh, you messed up, you're out, and it's, so for me, the stories are on one side great because as a person who's been in ministry for a long time now, excuse me, and as a person who has a lot of friends in ministry, just by the nature of that, ranging anywhere from a custodian all the way to a senior pastor, we've seen a lot of these accusations that have occurred this year. And we've seen a lot of people whose character and integrity was just obliterated because of what had occurred. And I am not justifying or defending anyone's actions, okay? Right. But as a person who's in ministry and with a lot of friends in ministry and a staff that I work on of people that are in ministry, I would absolutely hope that if a mistake was made, it wouldn't permanently disqualify someone from being able to serve. And I know that there's different varying consequences related to whatever might have happened, but I hope that restoration can happen. Restoration is biblical. And I hope that it can happen. I think these two stories, Alan, that you sent us have very polar opposite outcomes. You know, on the Johnny Hunt side of things, the article reads that there was a credible accusation. Okay. And if you've studied it, you know it's there. We're not going to talk about that. But then the way he was restored was, hey, I've got these buddies of mine that are going to gather around me, and then, hey, magically I'm restored. Yay. And there's not transparency there.
Yeah.
And so that one kind of disturbs me.
And it was also somewhat hidden.
Yes.
It wasn't like it came to the surface. It was because of the accusation from the woman that it came out.
He didn't bring it to the surface. And I think that's a really big key in a lot of this.
And like with Chandler, there's so much bizarre about his whole scenario, because it's like he had a friendship with a woman and he didn't think there's anything wrong with it. She didn't think there's anything wrong with it. His wife didn't. Her husband didn't. Yeah. Nobody did except for a bystander over here. And it's like, well, what? But kudos to Matt for saying, hey, you know what? If there's question, I'm absolutely going to submit to you because you are the authority over me. How many pastors, even though they say, oh, well, I report to this board or the chairman of the deacons or personnel, really don't, and they're not actually going to do what comes up. But kudos to Chandler. But you're right. It's kind of like a standing ovation upon returning. Well, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, we gave our pastor a standing ovation at his 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
Is it different?
So I think,
what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like the idea of giving the pastor standing ovation, I know that in this case, it was because he had returned to the pulpit after being gone for a while over something, but we don't really know details about, but it's like to applaud a pastor for the work that they've done for so long. I mean, he's been at Village Church for 20 years. This
was his 20 years. I got you.
Yeah, he'd been at Village Church for 20 years. Yes. So it was like in the same time frame. Well, we gave our pastor a standing ovation out of encouragement and pride and thankfulness for his service. Did they do the same thing? Right. Is that what it was about? And just the emotional return of it is what caused it.
Here's what makes it complicated is like you have, because you can watch their services online. You have an outside audience watching a church family go through a process without us going through the process. And, it wasn't like the clapping, the standing ovation was choreographed. I can imagine, like, how do you communicate from an audience to someone on stage that we love you and you probably would clap as in, we love you. We don't think you're perfect. You messed up, but we love you. Somebody stands up there. Someone else stands up. You know how it is
it's just
in church.
Reaction.
In church, it's like, oh no, we got to stand up again because so and so just stood up in front of me.
See, I'm that honorary person that whenever we have staff prayer meeting on Wednesday, and Mark leads us in worship, and he goes, "All right, can you please stand?" And I'm like, "I'm eating my yogurt. I don't want to stand up."
Well, I can just imagine human nature is. A standing ovation can mean a lot of different things. And from an outside person looking in, it's like, here's this congregation giving a standing ovation because this guy came clean on an inappropriate relationship that we're not even really privy of knowing the details on. Right. And so I think we can be
with everything that's published with Matt, I don't even know that there was anything inappropriate about it.
I think that probably, I mean, I know for Ashley and I know for everyone that I give counseling to, that me as a guy and any guy, you shouldn't have a best friend or a close friend that's a girl. And a girl, a wife, you shouldn't have a close friend that's a guy. You shouldn't. I had a couple that I say I was counseling. Yeah, I was counseling them. And the wife had a best friend who was a guy, and they would go to Denver and go to soccer games, watch soccer matches. And I just asked the husband when we were just talking one-on-one, how do you feel about that? He goes, well, I think it's fine. I just said, dude, you're playing with fire. Yeah. Y'all are playing with fire. And that couple left the church like within a week or two of me making that comment. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. And
see, I disagree a little bit. I think you can have friends. I just think you have to make sure there are set boundaries.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Not going and hanging out together.
Right. You don't go places alone. You don't do things like that. You don't have super private conversations. Yeah. It's like, so I've got a friend from the church we came from who is a colleague, a professional colleague. But we're great friends. Like we bounce ideas off of each other professionally.
Yep.
We encourage one another, kind of a thing. But one of the boundaries I have with my wife is every conversation my wife knows about.
Yeah.
You know, my wife is also incredibly great friends with this person. So it's not like it's just a me and this person relationship. No,
Right.
my wife is also incredibly good friends with this person. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of one of the things that
There's
we have.
transparency
Yeah,
there.
we have in our marriage is that there's not ever going to be a one-sided friendship there.
Yeah.
You know, if you're friends with me, you're friends with my wife. If you're friends with my wife, you're friends with me. Sorry to all of Andrea's friends that don't want to be friends with me. But
I think Pastor West says this a lot too, but just if you don't put yourself in situations, if you don't prime yourself to be in those situations, they won't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you have to, working in the church and serving and really just serving the Lord, you have to think about those things. And it's sad, but our culture does not represent our faith. Those two are very different. And
Right.
so,
And I can see a lot of people just being like, this sounds like the oddest conversation in the world, like with
Right.
not understanding.
Yes. And that was the response. So I read a lot of the comment threads. I can get lost in a comment thread and then I'm all worked up and I want to fight
Yeah.
people. And
and then you forget and somebody asks you about it in a
and Michael's
trivia
like,
thing and you're like, I don't
can you
remember
please
that.
not? Because you're getting a little irritated at me. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're just too close, you know? But, so a lot of people observed what happened at the Village Church.
Yep.
And exactly like you said, the standing ovation is like, we're applauding a guy who potentially, allegedly, had an inappropriate relationship. And I guess there was
Inappropriate
always
conversation.
Yeah, and there was always a chance he wasn't going to come back. And I think a lot of people from the outside looking in, that's where they thought he was going to end up, is not returning. And so now
Yeah.
it looks like, oh, he's fine. Everything's healed. And so, but again, it's that restoration process. I believe because we are believers, maybe we're one step ahead of the game in that we know a lot of these keys to restoration.
Yeah.
And if you are not a believer, you don't understand what the Bible says and you don't have a relationship with the Lord in which to be restored. And so I do feel like the restoration process can happen quicker, you know, maybe coming from this side of things.
Yeah.
But
And not that you can't understand restoration as a non-believer, but
Right.
I do think that we desire that maybe so much more. Like in marriage, in marriages where someone's unfaithful, you know, as long as both parties are wanting that, we want to see restoration. We want to see forgiveness. We want to see something broken come back together again,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what Christ has done for us. We are
Right.
the ultimate sinner. We're the ultimate one that broke a relationship. We're the one that we were unfaithful to God, who created us, to love us, to have a relationship with us. And so, like you said, we have those examples. And so here we have it. It's complicated, and we have we are part of the crowd on the outside looking in. And so it's hard for us to really have strong opinions when we don't know the details. But I do think we can safely say that with Johnny Hunt in that situation, it is different than Matt Chandler's situation. We would hope that both pastors and both churches had real accountability that's been set up and real teams that are
Actually
keeping
engaging.
and trying to help that person heal. And what I don't know is does forgiveness always mean restoration? You know, Johnny Hunt or a pastor can be forgiven by a church and maybe even not have to step away from serving that church, but do they go back into that senior pastor role? Or if they do, 6 months seems awfully quick for having a sexual relationship with another woman and not really coming clean with it. You know, I've heard some people just say, well, it was mutual. Well, it doesn't matter. He made a bad
still-
decision.
yeah.
And it was, you know, he was a part of that. And so therefore, you know, restoration to that role, I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hard decision. And Ali, you said something a minute ago about how our culture related to like restoration and all that kind of stuff. One of my favorite passages is Galatians 6, and it talks about this. And like I've done lots and lots of things about Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. But you know, the passage before that, brethren, if any of you is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, and each one looking to yourself so that you too will not be tempted. that's in the Bible, right? So that has nothing to do with our current culture. It was a reality then too, that it's easy to get caught up in that, when you're trying to help someone do whatever. But, the fact of the matter is the verse I first read, which is Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens. That statement alone has so much to unpack, right? Because bear one another's, not, hey, you who are perfect, bear the imperfect's burdens. You who are imperfect, bear the imperfect's burdens. No, it basically states we're all going to deal with something at some point. Yeah. We're all going, because we're human, we're flawed, we're sinners. Sin entered the world, we have to deal with it. And so we have to bear one another and talk about a passage about restoration. It is a biblical thing, but you're right, Alan. Like, there's so much with both of these two stories on the polar opposites. And you can even tell the writing on the one about Johnny Hunt. That guy who wrote that article doesn't believe it. And he words it and phrases it that he doesn't believe it. Well, he thinks it's all a farce, right?
And he even says that I've been that guy.
Yeah, he's been that guy.
I've been in that process.
And so it's like we have to err on the side of caution, but we also have to remember that, we are responsible for what happens in the church. We are responsible for what occurs. And if these men are restored, amen, fantastic, praise the Lord. If these men are not restored and we have turned a blind eye just to put them back into position because of who they are and because of the clout that they carry and the authority that they hold or whatever, their popularity or their name, then shame on us, for allowing that.
Is he quote, is the pastor's restoration more important than the woman who either confessed that we had an inappropriate relationship or no, he came on to me? It sounds like they have two different stories. Yeah. So she definitely felt like that she was sexually assaulted. And the third party made the decision after looking into it that that's what happened. Yeah. So I'm going to go with the third party in the way that I feel right now. It's like, I feel like that the people that are involved in that process put his restoration before her. And so I'm not comfortable with it. And that's just my opinion. I'm not stating this on behalf of First Baptist Rogers. I'm just stating I'm not comfortable with that. And he can be forgiven. He can, God can forgive him. The church can forgive him. But I think being restored to the position of a pastor at the church, I think it was a bad decision. And I don't think I don't think it's helpful for anyone. I don't even think it's helpful for Johnny Hunt, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think it's helpful for him. And it takes nothing away that he has been an incredible pastor, a great leader. He made a mistake. He's human, but forgiveness doesn't mean restoration all the time.
I agree.
It just means forgiveness.
Yeah.
And you can take that into so many different areas, to where if a woman is either sexually assaulted or, let's just say, your colleagues at work and a man either makes a sexual encounter, tries something on a woman, she can later forgive him, but she's not going to trust being around him alone.
Yeah.
Right. And she's
not going to restore that relationship. She's wise, and so, but we can forgive.
Yeah.
And so that's where I fall on those two. And those of you listening, you may disagree. You may have more information that I don't. I don't pretend I know everything, but that's what I do know, and that's why I'm uncomfortable with it. So my question, maybe in closing our conversation, is, what does restoration look like if we as a church? Let's just take the example of Johnny Hunt, okay, and that's the extreme. Let's take the extreme. What does restoration look like that's healthy and that's good for Johnny, for Dr. Hunt or for Johnny Hunt? We call him Johnny Hunt in Southern Baptist circles because we all feel like that we've known him, we've heard him speak or whatever. So it's personal to a lot of us that respect what he's done. But what's fair to him and healthy for him, for the church, for that woman and any other potential woman that may have a story, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think, Allie?
Well, one thing I'm trying to teach myself, because I have a lot of friends who are falling into this realm, is learning to be sensitive to those who have been hurt by the church. And I think a lot of church hurt can come from situations like this. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's because the person is hurt by the way the church handled something. Mm-hmm. So I could even see this affecting his congregation. Yeah. People who weren't even involved, who don't have a close relationship with him, but are hurt watching things happen.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I think in terms of restoration, for me, I think the correct thing would be for Johnny not to return to that position. Right. That is the consequence of a lot of actions in corporate America. Right. You know, you do this, you lose your job. Right. And I'm sorry you don't get to come back. That doesn't mean you can't ever serve in ministry again. That doesn't mean you can't ever serve in whatever capacity, but just at this church, the healthiest move for us is moving forward without you. Right. And so for me, I think that's what should happen there. I think also, again, you have to be sensitive to other people. So opening up honest and transparent conversation as a staff for anyone who wants to, if you're a church member and you want to talk through, like, what are we doing? I think you have to be very open as a church, how you're handling things. Right. It doesn't always seem fair because we live in such a light, that we have to share everything and things can't be confidential.
And I almost would rather, some people are asking for, the text messages, and these aren't even people who are church members. Right. It's like this really is a family. I mean, a church is a family. It should be in-house. The church probably should appoint, I don't know how, 8, 10, 15 people that are responsible, and maybe they're elected and they're the ones that may view these text messages and judge what's, you know what I mean? And then they give a report. Something like that probably seems like more of a healthier, when I think of the Matt Chandler situation. And really, I think it's really in the news because they went above and beyond and wanting to be careful with this because of the potential. One, it's already out.
Yeah, it's already
There's going to be an accusation thrown. So I think he did the right thing going to the elders and maybe even. It's what do you call it? Chum out in the water to kind of attract sharks or fish for fishing. I just think it's just chum in the water for people who are like, a juicy story, another fallen pastor. And I can understand that. I mean, some people who maybe resent either Christianity or conservative Christianity, I get that. Yeah. And so this is probably something very interesting and hoping to see another person who thinks they're perfect, which none of us think we are.
None of us think we're perfect.
No.
Yeah, thinks they're perfect is fallen from grace. But
and I want to add, can I add one more thing? Yeah. So just for people listening, we are very aware that there are a lot of pastors who will always stay in their role and things will never be brought to light. Yeah. And we'll put just as much faith in them, and they will never wear the target that Matt and Johnny and whomever else fall into this trap. Their sins will stay hidden. Right. And I just feel like that's important to say too. We know that there are still people who are going to serve, who just those things aren't going to be taken up by the media and that it's a shame.
It won't be revealed on this side of eternity, but they will stand before God. Right. And that's the one to fear.
That's how we know we're not perfect.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I hate to bring this part up because I know where we're at in recording laws, although there's probably going to be at least 20 minutes of silence during that trivia game that we're going to edit out. That's right. But so, you asked the question, what does real restoration look like? And that's such a hard question. Restoration was not something that I had really as a believer, as a staff member at a church, ever really thought about. To be honest, until I went to an event and visited a church, a big church, and the guy that greeted us, because we went as visitors, right? So we got the full experience. His title was Pastor of Restoration. And I was like, I'm curious what that means. And he had, his role basically was to deal with people in the church, whether they were staff or not. And when sin was confronted, his role was to walk beside them, to encourage them, to get them into whatever.
That's cool.
The church I served at before, one of the churches I served at before, had dealt with sexual sin from the pulpit, and on more than one occasion, actually. Wow. And so the first time it happened, I was kind of new to the church, and so I was kind of like caught in the whirlwind of it. But it was, I know from the church's standpoint, just to kind of give a little bit of a caveat here for us not being too critical with the churches themselves. The church I was at really thought they were doing the right thing by keeping stuff quiet, not letting it become a public thing because they didn't want to destroy the church members' ability to attend church, all this kind of stuff. Like all this stuff, it wasn't a public story. It became a public story because the quote unquote victim of the first thing went to the news on purpose to try to get media attention, to try to make it a big deal, and has since gone on to be a public speaker for abuse in the church, even though the legal court decided she wasn't actually a victim, but because of the agreement, yada, yada, yada. So, but the second time it happened, kind of like trying to learn from the mistake, it was like, okay, this has occurred. We've got to make it public right away. We've got to be transparent. We've got to come out. We've got to say what's happened. And so, the first time I wasn't really super involved in it. I remember being in the closed business meetings and all that kind of stuff where they revealed the investigatory evidence that said this is how it's being determined. There's no guilt here in the form that is being accused. There's still guilt of sin, but not in the assault thing. But the second time it was definitely mutual, but it was brought out, well, that pastor obviously was terminated for what had happened. And then for a number of years, he wasn't in ministry. I don't know what his life looked like. He became very private, very closed off. And then probably 7-8 years later, all of a sudden he's resurfacing to the public again. His demeanor had changed. His attitudes had changed, where once he was kind of an arrogant, pompous, know-it-all tyrant of a pastor, for lack of a better description, but his demeanor had changed. He was now gentle. He was, meek. He was kind. He was gracious. And, watching that, and eventually he returned to a pulpit, and I witnessed that. I witnessed that from my perspective of having served in the church where his thing had happened, and then watching what occurred in his life to a degree, obviously, because like I said, there was a big chunk of there where it wasn't. But I do know from people that were mutual friends with him that like him and his wife were going to counseling, they were doing all this stuff, and there was a process there, right? And then seeing the outcome at the other end years later, and seeing him now in a pulpit, and he's a different person. His attitude has changed, his demeanor has changed, and so to me, that's what restoration looks like. That doesn't mean that's a recipe for everyone's restoration, but the fact that I can see that in this man's life something has changed and that he is different, like there has been a work that has happened in him to make him a different person than who he was. And as a senior pastor of a megachurch, it's easy to end up in this place where you're kind of, like we talked about, there's not really an avenue to share your struggles, and you can almost become like this pinnacle peak person where you're out there on an island by yourself and you don't have any encouragement. It's easy to become arrogant and to become prideful and to think I can get whatever I want, even if it's just a subconscious thought, and end up in this situation. And, and I think that's what happened at my last church. And yet, like I said, for me, that restoration is visible. It's evident. And I'll be honest with you, when it happened, when everything originally went down, I would have been the first person to tell you he should never serve in a church again. He should never serve in a church again. He's a terrible human being. He's a terrible person. He's made terrible decisions. And this is just the icing on the cake. I mean, like that was my attitude of him. That was my perspective of him. And now, like I've learned that's not the truth. I was wrong for thinking that about him, but that's what restoration to me looks like. There has been an evident change in his life. And so in a sense, I've kind of seen, again, the Matt Chandler thing is a little weird because there's not a lot of detail there, but I've seen both sides of the spectrum of what we've talked about today. Hey, we're going to get our group of buddies around and try to figure out how to protect the pastor and the church and make this go away. Right. Because the church thought that was the right thing to do. And then I've also seen the full transparency, man removed, and restoration happened. I've seen both. And so to me, it's like restoration is knowing and understanding and seeing a change. And so it's hard for me to make a judgment about these two specific stories. I kind of tend to lean with you, on the Johnny thing, but on the Matt thing, I don't feel like I can make a judgment because there's just not enough there.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, it's like these are two examples, but we're not there. We're not on those teams. We're not in it. And so I think every case is going to be unique. We can't say, here's a list, boom, boom, boom. This is what it ought to look like. because every case is unique, but you do have to think about everyone involved. And I definitely would think about, especially if there's victims involved in a situation where in one story there was a victim and the other one it's not very clear that there was a victim with the Chandler thing. But
And that's the part that I'm with you and I'm with Allie on. Where's the victim in this? And I mean, I hate using the word victim, but the reality is the information that came out said there clearly was a victim. Where's the victim in this? Does the victim?
who was the victim?
The victim in the Johnny Hunt case.
Oh yeah, okay, that one. I was thinking of.
It's like, where is she at in this? You know, and that's the part that isn't known. It's like, if she feels like things have been done right and restoration has happened, great. Yep. You know, but
and again, her job's not restoration. Her job is forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's the church's role to and what does restoration look like? You know, does it mean getting your role back? Every situation's going to be unique, but I do think that, and I don't think we're going to please everybody. You know, for those in the crowd that, you know, can get riled up and excited of, you know, here's another situation. I hope that guy gets everything he deserves. Well, you know, you need to check your heart. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so every person that I meet where there's a broken relationship, I always pray and hope that there is room for restoration. Even when someone doesn't deserve it, there can be room. You know, I met with a couple, a young couple had been married for a year, and one of them wanted to no longer be in the relationship. Wow. And it was just heartbreaking. And I was just said, I've seen relationships that were so much more damaged than what you guys are dealing with. You guys are dealing with just basic, you know, stuff, but one did not want to be in that relationship anymore. Where I've seen other ones where one side was totally unfaithful, totally hurt the other person, and by just a sheer amazement in God's grace and grace from this person, their marriage was restored over years. You know, it just doesn't happen like that. Forgiveness can happen quicker. Restoration and trust and all that is built over time. And so,
we can't forget God's sovereignty in that too. You know, you made the comment, someone being restored, even if they don't deserve it. God has a plan.
Yeah.
And ultimately He's in control. And so if someone is restored and we don't think they should be because of whatever, I mean, maybe God's got a point behind allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there's a reason why that is going to occur, is because God's not done with that yet.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just so hard. It's so tricky.
Yeah.
You know, but the reality is it's something we deal with constantly, especially working in the church world, is the scrutiny and the microscope, you know, that we're under because of that. So,
right. Cool. Well, we would love to hear your thoughts on this. I appreciate you guys giving your thoughts on it. By no means did we unpack everything in there. There's so many things that we could talk about, but we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to put your comments in the chat. And let's just pray. Let's pray for God's mercy to be upon situations just like He forgave us, the same forgiveness He gave us. And if you have a spirit of where you're hoping that someone doesn't get that mercy, you really need to check your heart. You know, we should desire reconciliation in every broken relationship.
And you won't want what you deserve either.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's kind of the end of the day.
So thank you guys.
Don't forget to
like,
subscribe, and buy
share.
the stuff off my Christmas list.
And comment. And buy me 150 little rubber duckies so I can prank people around the office.
See y'all next week.
Bye.